Hi, everybody. It's Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Monday night, November the 30th, on a day where everything is upside down. Severe weather is occurring in was occurring in eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and the snow is occurring here in North Georgia. Joe, I had snow outside my window just a little while ago when I last checked, and it's a crispy 36 degrees here in Marietta.
I just had to correct my wife, who said the high here
Oh,
was
wait, wait,
six.
wait, 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 wait! Stop!
Uh,
Just a second. I want to hear that again. You're just correcting your wife.
I had to correct my wife.
Oh, and
On
you
the,
actually lived to finish that sentence. Go on.
she said the high temperature on the chat board. She said our high was 62. Wrong, dear. 64 the high, and right now it's 63. Believe it or not.
Well,
So there we go.
it's been. I think when I got up this morning, it was about 41, and the temperatures just kind of sunk in the 30s and have been in the 30s here all day. My one of my daughters is in Columbus, Ohio. She's got snow going on over there, so it's just a really crazy, uh, not unusual. I mean, this kind of stuff does happen from time to time. It doesn't happen every year or every 3 or 4 or 5 years, but every once in a while you do get one of these ridiculous looking situations where you've got 60 shooting up all the way into Vermont and New Hampshire, and you've got 20s because it's going to be down in the 20s here by tomorrow morning.
Well, we may get down to about 50 or 52 by tomorrow morning, but then interestingly, that's going to be the high tomorrow, probably first thing in the morning around 50 or 52, and then we'll see the temperatures slide down into the 40s. No, not the 30s or 20s where Mr. Chiappi is, but it will be getting chillier tomorrow. But right now, it is to finish out this month of November, rather balmy out
Yeah,
there.
900 miles it took me. I had to drive 900 miles south. And actually, if I drive north tomorrow, because I'm going to be on the road tomorrow, but if I drive north tomorrow the way I came down, which is basically through uh, the western North Carolina mountains on Interstate 26, there are going to be stretches there that are going to have about a foot of snow on the ground. So
Wow.
I'm deciding what to do here at this point, whether I really want to see it or I really should avoid it. And
Well, I'm sure that the roads and the interstates and whatever takes you through that part of the country will be pretty well cleared by then. So if you're worried about getting stuck in the snow, I don't think that'll happen, but it should make for a very pretty scene driving along. Just make sure you don't get into an accident while you're taking your phone and taking pictures of
no,
the
well,
white stuff.
clearly, I'm not. I'm going to be, ever so cautious. All right, I promise.
Yes.
And speaking of which, talking about snow removal and things along that subject line, the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware of West Babylon, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. Now that you asked, just to the north of the Southern State Parkway, 631 756 1125. They have the best prices in town on everything you need with regards to dealing with winter storms, not just shovels and spreaders, but Omni Melt, Petalo, and Mag Ice pellets and flakes. So anything you need to take care of and get rid of ice and snow this year, Omni True Value Hardware is the place to go. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. So, this Joe, this I my memory is correct, and it usually isn't. But was this the third severe weather outbreak this month? I mean, why do we even bother worrying about severe weather in May, June, and July when we seem to be getting them in October, November, and December?
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's number three, but it's been a pretty wild month. It's also been now. It'll be interesting now that we're finishing out November. I'm sure the month will end up above normal. The question is just how much above normal November will turn out to be.
Yeah, and whether that means anything with regards to the longer term, who knows? You could find stats that support that it does, and find stats that's makes it a little more tenuous. I try not to read too much into just 1 or 2 months worth of weather because you and I both know that could just turn on a dime, and
Absolutely.
to an extent it already has. So let's take a look
In fact,
at.
I don't mean to cut into you, but since you mentioned that, let me just mention a bit of New York City history here.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just, hold on for a second. Yeah, 1896. On this day in 1896, New York City was shoveling out from a 5-inch snowfall. It actually started the day before. And this all comes 3 days after the high in New York City hit 72, a record that still stands.
Yeah, I
So,
mean
yes,
that happens. That happens infrequently, but it does, particularly when you get these early season or even the late season snowfalls. It could very easily see temperatures, well up into the 60s and even into the 70s before it happens. So everybody oohs and ahs over it as if it's something new. It really isn't. It's been going. It just happens from time to time.
at 145 years ago today, now I just mentioned I hit a high of 64. It's probably just as high in New York City Central Park today. A very mild day by the standards of the end of November. 145 years ago on this date, 1875, it was bitterly cold. The high temperature in New York was 14. The
Ew.
low was 5. It averaged out 31 degrees below normal.
Hmm.
And this was not only the earliest date for a reading in the single digits, but for a high in the teens. And it was also colder than any other day of that winter, 1875, 1876, based upon the mean temperature.
All right.
14 for a high, 5 for a low. Today, New York City, 1875.
We should mention Sebastian P hitting super chat tonight. Joe and I really appreciate it. Sebastian, you haven't been on the board for a while, so welcome back. And those of you watching for the first time, you get involved in the conversation on the chat board. You can do that by subscribing to my YouTube channel with your Gmail account, and you will be all set to go. Now, we did have something from SPC came out a little while ago. I just want to bring this up just to again, I guess just to marvel over the fact that it's the end of November and we're pulling up mesoscale discussions from the Storm Prediction Center. But they actually issued one about 20 minutes ago for southern New England, Long Island, back to about the Hudson River, saying that it was unlikely that they would be putting up any tornado watch. It said they have in a big box, new watch is not warranted. So uh, the existing tornado watch that we have that I think might be still going on. Let's me just bring that up. Hang on 1 second. Nope, that's gone now. So the tornado watch that was up from just south of New York City across north central Jersey, southward down into the Delmarva Peninsula, that's done. We have a number of high wind wind advisories, and there are also some high wind warnings up for southeastern New England, but wind advisories from Maine down into Connecticut, and also a high wind warning up for Suffolk County. We also have winter storm warnings up for the shores of Lake Erie in Ohio, and this includes Cleveland, which could wind up with a foot. Also, northwestern Pennsylvania, southwestern New York State, winter storm warnings. Winter weather advisories for much of the rest of western Pennsylvania. There are a few counties in western Maryland that are under a winter storm warning, Joe. And this was one of those weird days today where there was a tornado watch up in eastern Maryland and a winter storm warning up in western Maryland at the same time. And those winter weather advisories go down into Kentucky, parts of Tennessee, the Carolina Mountains. It's either an advisory or some winter storm warnings, and they have put winter weather advisories up for a bunch of counties in North Georgia. I just want to assure everybody that Atlanta is not in that bunch of counties. But Rome, Georgia is. So is Dalton, Georgia, Blairsville, which is where I was back a few days ago, up at 2,000 feet above sea level. And they were snowing there a couple of hours ago at 32. So they're probably going to have some accumulation during tonight. This is all very exciting to me, sitting down here in the deep south and having to look at snow. And here's the Weather Service digital forecast out. There are mountain peaks here in western North Carolina. If you look closely, there's different color shadings, like little dots there. So there are places. I was reading some of the individual forecasts, and they were talking about up to 15 inches in some of the higher mountain peaks in the western Carolinas. We're also seeing some rather sizable amounts in the eastern part of West Virginia and northwestern Virginia on the order of 4 to 6 inches. I wonder if Johnny Quest is going to see something out of this. And in western PA, it's 3 to 5. Pittsburgh gets the bullseye of 3, 12 up near Erie, 13 in Cleveland, looking at 2 in Columbus, 4 in Akron, and it looks like it might snow down clean to Cincinnati, where they could get an inch.
Uh,
You knew I was going to do that.
I knew you drew. Yes, indeed.
So now I've got the surface temperatures, the current weather conditions here plotted all over the place. So you're at, from what I can see, Joe, Danbury is 63, White Plains is 64, and Poughkeepsie is 65.
Amazing, isn't it?
And still getting some gusts. Kennedy just gusted to 44. That dying squall line is moving through now. Seeing some wind shifts to the west across PA. The winds drop off fairly quickly once that front goes by, so the wind's not going to be a big issue for much longer. Seeing some gusts out in Bedford, Mass, is gusting to 44. Otis Air Force Base gusting also to 44. Nantucket gusting to 38. One of the buoys that's east of Nantucket's gusting to 47. Cape Cod gusting to 40. Boston gusting to 44 at Logan. So that's pretty much where the concentration of wind is now. And with respect to the radar, that squall line, boy, I have to tell you, Joe, that squall line was so impressive looking late this afternoon when it was in eastern PA down into Maryland. And now it's really pretty much fallen apart in the last 20 or 30 minutes. But boy, that was really a powerhouse for this time of year. It's shocking.
Joe, you gotta understand. I mean, it's probably dying off because of diurnal heat, lack of diurnal heating. I mean, the peak heating part of the day came about 2 or 3 o'clock. The sun has been down now for
I know, for 3 hours, and it still was holding together past sundown.
I know it's really amazing, really crazy.
Well, it's the upper trough. I mean, that's the only way you could support severe weather up here this time of year is you got to have a really deep upper trough, and that's what we have. I mean, we have this wrapped up cutoff low. It's very cold in the upper layers of the atmosphere, and you're forcing all this tropical air with dew points in the 60s coming in. It's no wonder that we had a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings that were issued.
Right. It's very funny. We were actually watching Renata's iPad. We like to watch local television while we're eating dinner using the iPad, and we put it on the table. And for more than one occasion, several times, I think, up came special weather alert or special weather statement across the top of the iPad, warning us of lightning, warning us of severe weather, thunder, and whatever. And I said, "What's going on? I want to have a nice, quiet dinner." And meanwhile, outside, it's like the winds are flailing around, the rain is coming down, and we actually had a brief power blink for about 1.5 seconds. Thank God we did not lose power entirely, but my son and my daughter-in-law, who doesn't live too far away from here, they lost power. And so I see Scott D on the chat board here says my birdhouse flew away today.
Nice. While all that, there's still a lot of heavy rain. And one of this is another system, by the way, that completely outperformed with regards to rainfall for New England. So the drought situation there continues to ease, and that's good news. Radar also showing snow. You see the rotation. This is on the backside of the upper low, so you're seeing these areas where the dark green is showing up. It's probably where you have a steady accumulating snow on the order of about an inch or so an hour. That's what I would guess. But this covers a fairly large area of Ohio into eastern Kentucky down into West Virginia. Seeing snow in eastern Tennessee to the Carolina border, and I'm seeing where some of these echoes that are moving into North Georgia are coming from. So I'll probably have a few more snow showers to play with. Down in South Florida, southernmost Florida, seeing some showers from the cold front from the storm that's moving up from Pennsylvania into upstate New York. Not much going on out in the west. A little bit of activity up in the northern Rockies and up in Washington State, but it's mostly on the light side. And that's it as far as the radar is concerned. Here's what it looks like on the 21Z surface map. Low pressure up somewhere near Syracuse. Another low down in near Baltimore. You've got this. You've got temperatures in the 60s with dew points in the 60s. All clear up into Connecticut, and you've got 70s. Some 70-degree readings up down in the Delmarva Peninsula, and of course on the other side of that, on the other side of the cold front, you're looking at temperatures that are in the 30s, and again they'll be getting down into the 20s as colder air comes down from the north. Just a really fascinating setup all the way around.
It is. It is. You said it right at the very beginning of the show. We have an upside down weather pattern, a topsy-turvy weather pattern tonight.
Correct. And yeah, so as far as that snow goes, by the way, I've got the probabilistic 72-hour probability of snow accumulating greater than 2 inches. I think that's easier to say than probabilistic.
Yeah.
All right. So just to show you how the folks at WPC are thinking about this, you got a pretty large area there. That dark red is a 95% or higher probability of greater than 2 inches for the eastern half of Ohio and western Pennsylvania and northern West Virginia. So that's a pretty, it's pretty much a done deal. And even the 4 inch, I got to put the probability of at least 4. And you see in northeast Ohio, northwest PA, also up on the range of about 90 to 100% probability of at least 4. Let's just give it one more shot and go to greater than 8. Are we going to come up with anything greater than 8? Yes, we are. Also, northeast Ohio, northwest PA, and 80 small areas, but you got a fairly large area where there's a 50% chance of at least 8, and a couple of spots where it's over 80% with respect to the amount of snowfall. And I think that pretty much covers it. I'm gonna stop at 8. I'm not gonna hit the 12 button.
Okay.
Okay, you happy about that? I just want to make sure you're happy about that.
Well, I mean, what are you going to find if you hit 12? Yeah, I don't even think I think 8 is the limit right now. I mean, I'd be surprised if there was any spot.
Nope, they did. They actually have a 40. There's an area near Cleveland where they have a 50% probability of at least 12.
Which is why I never moved to Cleveland.
Yes.
Well, I will say one thing about the international airport at Cleveland. They have been ranked number one
Mm-hmm.
in terms of snow clearing. If you find yourself in Cleveland and there's heavy snow falling, you still have that possibility because they do such a great job at Cleveland in clearing away the snow, getting the runways in shape, even before the storm has ended. So they are probably one of the best in terms of doing that. But of course, you expect that being right, parked right by the mistake on the lake.
I having been to Cleveland a few times, I love that city. I have to tell you, it's a really nice place.
And it would probably be a lot nicer if we were about 50 or 60 miles further inland away from the influences of those
The lake
big
effect stuff.
snowstorms.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? But Cleveland actually is. Um, I loved it both times, especially on the lakefront. Just beautiful. In my never to be humble opinion.
I'll bet anyone who lived, let's say, all their lives or most of their lives in New York, who then had to move to Cleveland, pretty much was shell shocked after the first winter.
Oh
Well, we
yeah,
never had anything like this.
especially if you're east of the lake effect is really pronounced east of Cleveland as opposed to west of Cleveland.
Okay.
So you want to go west of Cleveland. If you go to Cleveland, you want to go. If you don't want snow, you try to go west toward Akron. If you want a lot of snow, you stay on the east side of Cleveland, and then that's just basically take out the lawn chair and just sit there and wait for the snow squalls to come in.
Right.
Now let's a few people, everybody's kind of sort of focusing on, well, because the models which had two storms. With this first one playing out now, the GFS anyway has backed off on the second one, but the European has not. Uh, and I just want to kind of take everybody through this with regards to what's happening. So we have this active northern jet bringing systems down out of Canada, and if you notice, starting from this past weekend and then right now, here is our storm system that is in the east. You can see how wrapped up this upper low is, but you already have energy that is dropping down into eastern Montana, down into the Rockies, and that is pushing the lead system along. That actually dives down into Oklahoma, and it's Joe. There's a lot of energy running around here, so I'm just looking as we move on to the models toward the end of the week. There's a short wave swinging down out of Canada. The thing that drops down into the lower Rockies sort of splits in two, and you've got this very long but disjointed trough that swings eastward. But what seems to happen is that you've got two of these pieces get left behind, and then there's another short wave that drops down on Sunday into the Great Lakes. There's still another one back up in north of Montana that's right behind it, and that thing sharpens up. But that the southern feature doesn't phase. They stay separate on the GFS. So you do wind up with a developing storm when that southern feature moves offshore, but it stays well to the south and east. But the European today, and as it did overnight and even did yesterday, the timing on what's going on in the north is a lot different, and how it handles the south is a lot different. And the European uh, really brings a powerhouse northern stream shortwave into the western lakes on Sunday and dives it down into West Virginia, western Maryland. It's got a cutoff low there that it moves off the Virginia coast early on the week of December. This is now next Tuesday. And it actually, by the way, and I saved the map in case anybody didn't notice, but it actually produced snowfall from coastal New Jersey to New York City up the Hudson Valley. It gave me 5 inches, Joe, on Long Island. I'll be back for that because
Well,
I'm a snow magnet now. And
you know,
really brings a fair amount of snow here to much of southern and southeastern New England. So I wouldn't necessarily, yeah, the GFS has got everything timed out differently, but the Europeans telling you to be very careful here because if the timing is a little bit different, we still could wind up with some kind of storm to look at over this coming weekend and into early next week.
you know, I we said this yesterday. Everything is moving so rapidly, so quickly that I think if you go much beyond 5 days, you're playing with fire because everything is moving so fast, and the models are having a tough time keeping up with all of these rapid changes. I've been looking beyond 5 days. As many of you are aware, we have the Geminid meteor shower, which I'm very much interested in seeing this year on the 14th. And Joe, I've been going, every day I check to see what the long range models are saying. That they just a few days ago reached out far enough to get to out to December 14th. And I got to tell you, it keeps changing. One day it looks, oh, very good. We're immersed in dry weather. We have no weather problem. Next day, all of a sudden,
Right.
we're into snow and rain and wind. And then, the next round, boom, we're back in the dry weather. And then we go back to the one thing or another. So what I'm saying is that, you know, you go much beyond the end of the week or into the upcoming weekend, and I think we still need a few more days
I know I
for everything
totally
to come into
agree,
focus here.
but um, this is a very dynamic pattern, or certainly can be, given all the energy that's running around. And as you said, a lot of this stuff is moving so quickly that trying to keep up with it is, an adventure in and of itself. Now, the one thing I will tell you is the fact that the NAO is going strongly negative here, and is going to remain strongly negative for much of the next 2 weeks. So that adds another variable into the equation because, uh, you know, think about the atmosphere when it's in a normal mode and everything. And when I say a normal mode, just going back to the weather back in November where we had, this flow from the Pacific, everything going west to east. There's that when that when you get an upper air pattern like that, it's far easier to predict and even reach out into the long range because there's not a whole lot of volatility in these troughs. They just move along. But when you're dealing with something like this, where you've got two distinct separate flows of energy, a northern stream and a very intense, also very strong southern stream that's part of this game, then you're at the mercy of which short wave is traveling at what speed. And in one run it goes faster, and one run it's slower. Then you have to look at everything that's out ahead of it. But the bottom line is, I still will say that sometime between now and Christmas, we're going to get an opportunity here to put down some snow. Um,
Well, Jim Murray Cosgrove, when he was our guest, what, now 3 weeks ago,
mhm.
made the illusion that something like this, the door might briefly open about the middle of December,
Well,
and this thing.
I think the door has opened. I think it already has opened.
Yeah.
I'm looking here, and by the way, the ensembles support this and everything else. I mean, I'm looking at, as you move through the forecast period, you're looking at a big blocking high that develops over between Greenland and Scandinavia and building toward Greenland, and you've got a low that looks like it wants to go from Nova Scotia out to 50 and 50. I mean, and it's a very blocky looking pattern here. So, you know, you're going to have those usual questions with regards to how much cold air. But hey, uh, if you're a snow lover, you got to love the way you have to love this pattern a whole lot more than what you had back in November. Because if we were still holding on to the pattern in November, you'd be talking about what you're trying to figure out what days you're going to turn the air conditioning on during the Christmas holidays. And I don't think we're going to be, at least right now, we don't have that. That's not a problem on the table as far as I can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Why not? I don't have any questions, so I guess
I,
it's your turn
I think
to
I have something here. Hang on a second. Uh, so let's see. Okay, here we go. You ready?
all set.
In the category is I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas in Central Park. Since 1912, how many Christmases have had at least one inch of snow on the ground on Christmas Day?
Okay, so let's see, it's 108 years, 107 years if you include 1912, and not quite gotten there with 2020 yet. And it's, white Christmases here have come in waves, Joe. I mean, there's
Hmm.
some decades. The decade of the 60s, I remember, I think that decade had 7 white Christmases. But then in the 70s and 80s, especially, there were hardly any snow events on Christmas Day or snow on the ground on Christmas Day. So 107 to 5, there's always that the probability in general is like 25% for a white Christmas in any
Right.
given year. So I will say 26 for Central Park
Okay.
white
The
Christmas.
answer is 18.
Well, you see, that's
Yeah, which is right. It's about one in five, one in
yeah,
six. Okay. What year has had the most snow fall on Christmas Day?
the most the heaviest snowfall on
Yeah,
Christmas Day. Well, I remember the Donner and Blitzen storm in 1966. Thunder and lightning, and I think about 6 or 7 inches fell on Christmas Eve into Christmas morning. That has to be Christmas Day, right?
that's what it says.
Okay, so that wouldn't count because the much of the snow that was on the ground Christmas morning was from the previous day or the previous night. Um, well, we had a Christmas storm. I think it was 5 inches on Christmas Day in 2002. I don't know if that was the heaviest.
No, it
Um,
wasn't the heaviest.
it wasn't the heaviest. What other storms do I remember that
Well,
might have?
this would not have been in your lifetime.
Not in my lifetime. Well, then what the heck?
So
I'll say Let's say I'll pick a year. 1934.
1909, seven
Right?
inches.
Okay.
Uh, what was the last year New York City had 1 inch of snowfall on Christmas Day?
I'm gonna say I don't think they had that much. What was it, a few years ago when you were up in Connecticut? Remember that? That was
Yeah,
in
that,
20.
no, there was nothing in the city for that one.
No, no, nothing. I'll say the storm. I'll say 2002,
9,
2009.
2009. 1 inch fell
Oh,
on Christmas. What is the percent chance that snow will fall on Christmas at in New York City?
well, I said that a few moments ago. 25%
Well, that's actually,
probability.
probability, but in other words, I guess the chance that it could snow on Christmas, on any Christmas day.
Well, I'd say like a 1 in 4 chance then.
It's actually 11%.
Oh, that's you're right because the 25% is for something being on the ground
Right, right.
on Christmas Day.
So here's
Yeah.
your bonus question.
Okay.
Um, if correct, you win a total solar eclipse of the sun in your backyard, according to the chairman, Scott Briller.
Oh, lovely.
From the period February 1st to February, I'm sorry, from the period December 1st through February 28th, what was Caribou, Maine's all-time high temperature?
I will say I'll go crazy. I'll say 66.
The answer is 59.
59.
59.
I would have thought well, you know what? I remember, I don't remember the year exactly, but there was one year where I had to work at News 12 and had to be there on New Year's Eve. Believe it or not, I don't know how many of you know this. So ridiculous. In White Plains, they have a ball drop, just like at Times Square, and News 12 covers that ball drop every year. That does not ridiculous because it's a Westchester event. But one year I had to be there, not in White Plains for the ball drop, but simply in the studio. And it was one year when it was incredibly warm. And I remember just before going out, Joe, and it was like a 12:01. Like anybody's going to be watching me doing the weather at
I
12:01
know. I
on
know.
New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Messina, New York was 64 degrees. I mean, it was incredible. It was kind of like what it is outside right now.
That's just
Incredibly warm across much of New York State and the Northeast. And then, I was saying to myself, maybe Caribou, but of course, Caribou is further north than Messina. 60, 66 wouldn't have cut it. So 59, yeah, that's.
well.
And I got in trouble during that New Year's Eve. No, not that. No, not that New Year's Eve. There was another New Year's Eve, and I was at News 12 Long Island. I told you this story, and a very distinguished anchor and our managing editor at News 12 Long Island, Mr. Bill Zimmerman.
Right.
He was there with somebody else, and I was doing the weather that night. And Bill was taking everything so seriously, and then he throws it to me for the weather, and I look into the camera, and I remember it's New Year's Eve, and I said, if any of you are watching me right now, it probably means your New Year's Eve party was a flop, and you could see a little bit of smoke coming out of Bill's head. Bill didn't talk to me again. I think after that,
Well.
you got to have
Uh,
a little bit of sense of humor when you have to work a holiday.
yeah, I know it is tough. All right, the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider and a provider for all your winter storm supplies. Hey, soon enough, you're going to be needing some winter storm supplies here. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125. They've got the best prices in town, and it's not just rock salt, but everything you need with regards to dealing with winter storms this coming winter season. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So,
Yes.
I'm probably going to be on the road tomorrow.
Take the day off, Joe.
Well, so no show tomorrow night. There's a chance that there might not be a show on Wednesday, depending on. I got a couple of things I have to do on Wednesday, so but I'll keep you posted. But we will
Okay.
definitely be back on Thursday.
Righto.
Okay, definitely no show tomorrow. Maybe a show on Wednesday, and definitely one on Thursday. All right.
Very good.
Sebastian, thanks again for hitting super chat tonight. Really appreciate it as always. Thanks to those of you who came on and watched today. We had a nice crowd, Joe. At least 150 people at times, which is pretty good. Big hellos to everybody on the chat board tonight with the active conversation it always is, and we'll see you. We'll see you on either Wednesday or for sure Thursday.
Very good.